Hello, and welcome to Ice is Slippery, an unserious podcast about hockey brought to you by 1.5 hockey fans. My name is Kate, and I'm the hockey fan.
And my name is Fred. I am half a hockey fan.
Good afternoon, Fred. How are you today?
Good afternoon, indeed.
You're in a good mood.
Well, yeah, I think doing this in the afternoon makes more sense for us.
I think so, too. We're a little more awake.
Yep.
I've had time to look at highlights and refresh myself on what happened this week because I'm old and things blur together.
That's good because it's all a blur to me.
Yes, it's okay. I'm going to walk you through this. We'll get through it together.
Yeah. If anyone asked me what teams played, what the scores were, how things were this week, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's okay to go through life like that. We don't all need to be like me. Trust me. I've been in my brain. It's a mess in here.
Yeah. I just let hockey go as soon as I'm not watching it.
It's very Buddhist of you.
I guess so.
Well, my news segment this week is going to be a little bit different. Instead of touching on a lot of things around the league, I'm just going to touch on a few things, but a little more in depth.
Okay.
Kick it off. I watched the Spittin Chiclets interview with Jim Nill, so you didn't have to.
Oh, my God.
And by you, I don't mean just you. I meant the general.
Yeah, there was no way I was going to watch that.
Right. So Spittin Chiclets, it's Paul Bissonnette, a.k.a. Cheesecake Factory, and some other dudes who are sportsy, ex-sports player guys, ex-NHLers who interview people. And it's not my cup of tea, personally. If you've listened to this podcast, you know it's kind of the polar opposite. And that's fine.
Those are like white dude, like sports people talking white dude sports.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, not my thing. It's fine if it's your thing. There's different things for everybody. That's fine. That's not what we do. But Jim Nill, the general manager for the Dallas Stars, was the guest this week. And obviously, as a Dallas Stars fan, I was interested in what he had to say. So I did watch his segment.
Yeah.
And the interview is actually really interesting. He did talk a lot about how he got into being a GM, his time working in Detroit for the Red Wings.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that he played for Team Canada in the 1980 Olympics, which was the year of the Miracle on Ice.
Oh, okay.
So Team Canada played Russia and lost before USA beat Russia.
Gotcha.
Which was, kind of wild.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know that I pictured him as a hockey player.
Yeah, no, he played in the NHL. He played professionally. Yeah. He had been drafted by the Blues before the Olympics, but he ended up going to college so he could stay amateur because at that time in the Olympics, you couldn't be a professional hockey player and go play in the Olympics.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they didn't have much of a Team Canada at that point, but they were kind of pulling one back together. He was also actually kind of a fighter back in his day.
Okay.
The Spittin Chiclets guys actually do research, it turns out. And they had looked up his penalty minutes, and he had 250 penalty minutes in his last year in juniors.
Oh, that's a lot, isn't it?
That is kind of a lot.
Yeah, right? Because it's 2 minutes a pop here and there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That adds up. No, they were pretty surprised because he's very calm and chill in his demeanor.
Mm-hmm.
He said he didn't really like fighting that much. And it wasn't like he went into every game going, I'm going to fight this guy. But he really doesn't like it when people take advantage of other people, like his teammates. So
yeah,
he had a strong sense of justice. So when he saw that people were getting run over, he had to avenge them, basically.
Gotcha. Sure.
Which I appreciate and enjoy. I also have a strong sense of justice. So I'm the same way.
That's why you get in so many fights.
I mean, I did used to fight on the internet a lot, but ever since I got medicated for ADHD, my impulse control is way better.
There we go.
So there you have it. He talked a lot about scouting and development, which, we all know the Dallas Stars are kind of well known for being great in that department.
Yeah.
They did ask about Wyatt Johnston, how did you guys get this kid who is so good and how did nobody else know about him? And, Wyatt, he was it was his senior year of high school, or he was, 17, 18 during sort of the COVID era when tournaments weren't really going on. But there was the under 18 World Championships that year. And it was in Frisco, Texas, because that was one of the few places where you could have tournaments, probably because Texas COVID regulations were so lax.
Whatever.
Right. So it was pretty easy for the Stars scouting department to have a look at him. And Nill did say that, they do keep an eye on sort of even the underage, players, sort of, 16, 17-year-olds to sort of see their progression and how they're growing.
Yeah, for sure.
So during the under 18 Worlds that year, they had a lot of impressive guys on the team. They had Connor Bedard. They had Logan Stankoven, who people already knew was fantastic. They knew he was fantastic. But, I think the size was a concern even then. Mason McTavish, who ended up going third overall to the Ducks that year in the draft. And there's a guy on our scouting team called Joe Mactinella, who was just all in on Wyatt. He was like, this is the guy. And, he hadn't really played very much in tournaments, but he played 7 games during that tournament. He was more of a third line guy, really sort of second fiddle to those other guys I mentioned. But Mactinella was like all in with him. And he was like, this is the guy. This is the one that we want.
Cool.
And Jim Nill talked about like how important it is to really build a good team and to trust them, to know what they're doing and what their job is.
Mm-hmm.
So they get to the draft that year, and Nill's like, are you sure this is the guy? And he's like, this is the guy. And then Detroit calls and is like, hey, we really want this goalie and we think he's going to be gone soon. Could we do a trade with you? Because Dallas at that point had the 15th overall pick. Mm-hmm. And Detroit's like, could we get your 15th pick? And then we'll give you our 23rd pick. And then we'll also give you a 2nd round pick and a 5th round pick. Wow. And so Jim Nill was like, what do you think, Joe? Is Wyatt still going to be around? And he was like, yeah, no, people don't know about him. Like, he's been too under the radar. He'll still be there at 23. So Jim Nill said, okay. So Detroit got their goalie prospect that they wanted. We got those extra picks. We got Wyatt. And with that 2nd round draft pick, we got Logan Stankoven.
Wow. Yeah. So that's some of that Jim Nill business stuff that everyone's like, he's a wizard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, the 5th round draft pick, we ended up getting Artem Grushnikov, who was a prospect in the Texas system, who ended up going to Calgary as part of the trade that got us Chris Tanev last year.
Oh, okay.
So that's, those draft picks, they turn into people. And
yes, they do.
But, they don't always necessarily turn into the people that you keep on your team. Sometimes They turn into people that come over and get you to the playoffs. So
turn into a bargaining chip.
Exactly. Yeah. Which, not always great, people and being, business tools.
Human resources.
Exactly. So, but I don't know. I thought that was all interesting. And then Nill also said, you draft these kids, but there's still a process after that. And he gave a lot of credit to the development team. He's a big believer that unless you're a really special player, you need to start in the minors.
Yeah.
He said it's a lot easier to start there and then come up rather than like start in the NHL and be flying on charter planes and staying in 5-star hotels and eating fancy dinners and then go get sent back down to the minors where you're making $70,000 a year and not doing all of that. But he said playing in juniors was like the best time he ever had in his life. Everyone's kind of the same age. Not a lot of guys really have families. You're coming out of college, so you think $70,000 a year, you're like a millionaire.
Right.
So he said it's really great. And he just really likes for the kids to kind of have that perspective and time to kind of grow and get seasoned, which is, again, I think a really good perspective.
I don't know that I would have necessarily had any thoughts on that, but having seen some of these young kids like debut in the NHL this year, I can see and you can hear like the struggles. It's like, whoa, this is a whole different level of sport. And they just have to kind of jump into the deep end, and it doesn't always go great.
Yeah, no, our baby stars are still like in their 20s compared to like a Macklin Celebrini or a Connor Bedard, you know?
Yeah.
It's a pretty different situation.
And then those superstars usually end up on crappy teams too. So
right, exactly. So it's kind of a different situation. Yeah, our baby stars are in a much better circumstance, I would say, comparatively speaking. They also talked about players. They talked about Duchesne because Duchesne had been on Spittin Chiclets earlier this year. And I guess the Stars and Duchesne had been interested in each other about 5 years earlier, but the Stars didn't have cap space at the time. So Duchesne ended up going to Nashville. So Nill wakes up one day and sees that the Preds have bought out Duchesne, and he's like, oh shit, like we had these plans, but let's change our plans and try to get him in. So like they reached out to Duchesne's people and they talked, and Duchesne was still interested. Like there was interest on both sides. And kind of reading between the lines, I get the impression that Duchesne probably could have made more money elsewhere, but he felt really wanted by Dallas.
Yeah.
And, after being bought out, I remember him talking on the podcast he was on before the clip was going around that he cried when he found out he was traded. He was like in the shower and he walked out and found out he was traded, and it was very upsetting for him. And so to have a team being like, hi, we want you still. We wanted you 5 years ago. We want you again. What can we do? Nice. I'm sure that was probably a huge help for him, which was really nice. And then they also talked about Marchment. Nill said Marchment's a really great story. So he was undrafted. He didn't even play major junior until he was 19. He did get a tryout with the Maple Leafs, and Nill thinks it's probably at least partially based on the fact that his dad was an NHLer,
Okay.
And So then, he played with the Leafs for a while, mostly sort of in their minors, and then went to Florida as part of a trade and then signed an extension with them, but was again, in their minors a lot of the time. But then he came up to free agency, and Pete DeBoer and Steve Spott were familiar with him, and Nill had played with his dad, so they kind of knew him, had a rapport with him, kind of thought he had potential, but I don't think that they even realized how good he could be. And Nill said he's always had the size, but his skating has gotten better. He's developed his skills. He has great hands for a big man. He's always lived on the edge a little bit, but he's learned to manage his game. He said there's nothing wrong with living on the edge in this game, but sometimes he was a little too far over the edge, but he's reined it in. And he's a hard guy to play against. And Nill says he's just a great example for other kids about what you can do if you're undrafted or drafted late.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really good insight into Mush because, he really wasn't on my radar before he got traded to the Stars. And he has quickly become one of my favorite children. So,
I mean, obviously, yeah.
Yes, I love him. He's great. And then they talked about trade situation a little bit. Nill said it's trickier than usual this year to start bringing in players to shore things up because there are several teams, especially in the East, who look like they could be playoff contenders for the first time in a long time. So when it comes to the trade deadline, when they would usually be selling, they might actually be looking to buy instead. So there's just not as many players available right now.
Okay.
So that's kind of why he did that Sharks trade when he did, was because he was like, all right, resources are thin. We got to make this happen while we can. So,
gotcha.
But yeah, the teams like Montreal, Ottawa, Detroit, Philly, they're still in the battles. So they're kind of as likely to buy as they are to sell right now. So he kind of is having to wait till more like late February, early March to really pull the trigger on things because he doesn't want to like commit to stuff and then he has another wave of injuries and then he has nothing left to bargain with, basically. He did say that Leon Bichel has been looking really good since he's been pulled up. And if that continues, then he has fewer worries on the back end. And and that, in addition to adding depth to forwards and defense, he was looking to add size. But with Bichel up and then Mush and Rope back from injuries, the size has already changed a decent amount. So he's a little less worried about that now. So, I don't know. I just thought that was all interesting.
So did I? Question mark?
Yeah. And like I said, that's why I listened so you didn't have
Oh my God. Yeah. No, I have no interest in NHL GM mode, it turns out.
No. Yeah. He said, if anything at this point, he's thinking maybe bringing in like one or two more top 9 forwards just to add depth and then like another defenseman. But I think this was recorded. It was definitely recorded before Lyubushkin was injured and possibly before Miro was injured.
Right.
So who the fuck knows at this point?
Yeah.
It's really, it's easy to say like, oh, they need to do this, but things change and shift. So
yeah,
it's wild.
What else did they talk about for the 4 hours of their podcast?
I don't know. I only listened to the Jim Nill section. The rest of it, I skipped. And I'm not sorry about it.
Yeah. Well,
I already watched 9 million hours of hockey a week. I don't have time to listen to a 4-hour hockey podcast.
Nope.
I mean, I think it's 3.5 hours, not 4. So.
I was rounding up.
Yes. Fair enough. So yeah, I think that's kind of the good points from that one. So moving on, The Athletic puts out a player poll every year where they anonymously poll players around the league on a variety of topics. So they spoke with 111 players this year over the last couple of months, and they published the results this week. And I picked out some of the highlights. So one of them was, if you have a no-trade list, what's the first team on it?
Right.
Far and away, the answer was, as it is every year, Winnipeg.
Nobody wants to go there?
Nobody wants to go to Winnipeg.
Okay.
One player summed it up really succinctly as nothing to do, bad food, freezing.
Yeah.
Which is fair.
Checks out.
As we live in a place with bad food, and it's kind of a deal breaker.
Yeah, it can be tough.
Another player said, I haven't heard a guy go to Winnipeg and be like, this is going to be my forever home, which I thought was funny.
Yep.
Buffalo is also a pretty strong contender for teams you don't want to go to.
They don't have palm trees and they have taxes.
Exactly. Yeah. And as one player said pretty bluntly, all they do is lose.
Yeah.
Which is kind of rough.
It's okay. The answer's in the room.
It's true. The response everyone was talking about was one player who hates Philly with the fire of 1,000 burning suns. And I've got his whole quote for posterity. Honestly, I wouldn't even mind Winnipeg, he said. It's not that nice, but I just hate Philly. I just hate Philly. I can't stand it. I can't stand the city. Everything. It's the ring. It's just one city that I absolutely despise. I can't stand it. I'd be sick if I got traded there. If I had a one-team no-trade list, they'd be on it in a second.
Wow. Yeah.
So the internet was pretty unanimously in agreement that that was Cutter Gauthier who said that, which is really funny. And one of the times the internet does a good play.
Yeah.
One guy did say, I'd feel lucky to play anywhere, which is a very nice answer, but also not necessarily the drama I'm looking for from an anonymous player poll.
Yeah, that's not what we're looking for.
That feels like a real Jamie Drysdale answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is funny because he's the flip side of Cutter Gauthier in all ways.
Right.
Another question was, which coach would you least like to play for?
Mm-hmm.
John Tortorella took that one home with 38% of the vote.
Yep.
Although, interestingly, he was also ranked number 7 on the list of coaches you'd most like to play for, just under Peter DeBoer.
Yeah, he's polarizing.
Literally, I have that in my notes. Okay. Polarizing. The Athletic also noted that some players came to Torts' defense and pointed out that many players enjoy playing for him. And interestingly, the guy who hates Philly actually said he'd love to play for Torts.
Interesting.
He said there'd probably be some funny stuff going on the bench. I'd just love to hear it sometime.
Yeah.
I want to know who this player is and I want to hang out with him.
Yeah.
He sounds fun.
He does.
Another player said about Torts, I've heard he's got his teams back. He'll take care of his players.
I believe that as well.
And then I wrote, long story short, Torts remains polarizing.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I beat you to the punchline.
It's okay. That's fine. It just shows that we are in accord on this.
Mm-hmm.
Other disliked coaches were Bruce Cassidy from Vegas.
Yeah, I don't like that guy.
One player said he didn't know him well, but had never heard anything good about him.
Yeah.
Greg Conan from the Ducks. One player didn't actually know his name, but was like, I've heard from other players that he's not good to play for. And Lindy Ruff, people said he's old, he doesn't understand the game anymore, and he doesn't know what's going on.
Well, who's that?
He's, I think, Buffalo now.
Okay, sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He used to coach the Stars way back in the way back.
In the way back, yeah.
Yes. And then one player also voted for Rob the Bod Brindamore from Carolina, saying just because he's way more in shape than I am, so he'd be intimidating.
That's the guy. I'm always worried he's going to have a heart attack out there.
The veins in his head are very alarming to me a lot of the time.
Yeah, he seems like he would have anger issues just by
the bulging eyes. He reminds me of like, what is it, like the history teacher in like Daria?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There we go.
He gives me those vibes for sure. There were some other questions that were a little boring, like who has the best and worst facilities for visiting teams, and if the season is too long. We already know your answer, yes.
Season's a little too long.
Season's a little too long. But this question is a little spicy. Should Gary Bettman retire?
Ooh, okay.
And 55% of players said yes. 45% said no. The people said who were fine with him saying mostly were like, the salary cap's rising, so that's cool. Basically, they're like, we're going to make more money. So
yeah, they're like, he let us make more money next year, so we're good with it.
I mean, that was basically my takeaway.
Yeah.
The other players said the culture of the league needs to change. The league needs to make hockey more accessible to lots of people. Stephen A. Smith doesn't get fired up about hockey, and he should be. Okay, I don't want Stephen A. Smith to care about hockey. You don't really watch any other sports stuff, so I don't know if you know who he is. He's like, I think, an ESPN guy. He's like a basketball guy.
Thought it was just like a generic name, like
no, no. He's like an ESPN like basketball pundit guy who's like super obnoxious.
Okay,
and I do not care if he cares about hockey because, like, God knows I don't want to hear his hot takes.
Yeah,
but I do agree that like people should be more interested in hockey than they are, and like including maybe like other sports pundits, and you know like. We've seen that like Shaq's into hockey.
Yep.
So why haven't we done something to like get Shaq like comment on the hockey, or like Charles Barkley?
Charles Barkley's into it.
Charles Barkley wants to do it. Like, yeah. So people have said we kind of need to do that. And there were some other responses, but my personal favorite was, I don't even know what that fucking guy does about Gary Bettman. And that's hockey for you. That's hockey players. So that's what is on the minds of the NHL players right now. Yeah,
I do think Bettman should retire because like he's been in that position since like 1972 or something stupid, like the early 90s, right?
It's a long time.
Like nobody should have a job that long. That's not good. You know, the people that I've worked with over the years that have 30, 35, 40 years, they're well respected, super knowledgeable, absolute waste of space.
Out of touch. Yeah. There was one player that said, oh, well, we don't have as much turmoil as the other leagues. And the Athletic kind of put in parentheses. Apparently he wasn't paying attention during these 3 years, which were the years of the lockouts.
Right.
Oh, yeah. No, he's been there a minute.
Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah, hockey should be probably more popular than it is, but I don't know that I need like sportsy dudes being like, yeah, hockey. Like, I don't need that energy.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword because it's like if you want to get more eyeballs on it, you do kind of need the sports people to be into it. But then when the sportsy people are into it, it brings
sports people to it.
It brings an energy. It brings an energy. I do kind of like that so much of the hockey community is, like the hockey fandom at least is kind of chill and laid back in comparison to some of the other sports I have been around.
Yeah, I can imagine being unhappy if a ton of basketball and football people were like, yay, hockey. Like, they would probably ruin it for me in some ways.
Yes. Although I do think we're going to be getting an influx of basketball people in Dallas because, Dallas basketball team traded away their best basketball player. And so there are very few good sports teams in Dallas these days. So we've had a few basketball people show up on our subreddit like, hi, I think I like hockey now. Can I learn about it? So we're like, here, come to mama. We'll teach you. Nice. So that's what we do. That's just how we are. And then I do just have one more little snippet of news that I just learned a few minutes before we started recording that's separate from those. So last night, the Blues played Chicago and won 6-5. The game went to a shootout, which went to 10 rounds, and the Blues ultimately won. You might be wondering, why are you telling me this? Who the fuck cares about the Blues in Chicago?
True.
Guess who scored that shootout winning goal in the 10th round?
Faksa.
Radek Faksa, former Dallas Star Radek Faksa.
I was like, it's not going to be Suter. You wouldn't have told me if it was Suter.
I certainly would not have. Radek Faksa also caught a puck to the face earlier in the game, got 7 stitches in his upper lip, and then came back and scored the shootout winner. So,
the curse of the Dallas Stars extends to multiple teams, huh?
Dallas Stars and getting hit in the face with pucks, name a more iconic combination. Like, you can't because there isn't one. It's just a lot. It's just happening all over the place.
Yeah.
So I think that's all I have for news. It's not, we didn't kind of do our big roundup all over the place, but I did kind of a deeper dive into those.
Yeah, no, I that's good. There were things that happened this week, I'm sure, that are things that happened.
I could have gone over that. I don't know. Maybe we'll do like a bonus episode next week of news items that I've missed or something. I don't know. Probably not. You're like, no, I don't want to do that.
No, I don't think anything really stuck out too much.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I think sometimes we can mix it up and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So do we want to move on and talk about the Flyers?
Okay.
All right. So the Flyers were a bit of a struggle bus this week, but I can't really hold them against it too much. We traded Frost and Farabee, and while they got to go play in Calgary pretty much right away, the players we traded for, Andrei Kuzmenko and Jacob Pelletier, were not able to start playing in Philly right away because of paperwork issues, work visa stuff coming from Canada.
Yeah.
So, and then Risto has been out injured. So we're kind of we're just all duct taped together. It's not...
Pretty much, yeah. It was kind of chaotic.
Yeah, we're just bringing people up from Lehigh and they're just doing their best.
Yeah. And one thing that I saw on the internet just regarding that trade stuff and them not making it, I just want to say, because people are dumb, apparently.
Yes.
Like,
these are the hockey fans we're not trying to get more of.
Yeah, these are not the hockey fans we're looking for. But there was a lot of like shenanigans around, this paperwork thing's a scam, and them not getting here is like it's all part of this big conspiracy. Like, you can't go to another country and work without like approval and paperwork. Like, I can't just go to Canada and start up a job and just get paid. Like, it just doesn't work like that. Anyway.
Right. Like, probably aren't Frost and Farabee both Canadian? Frost is for sure. Farabee's American, or
Farabee might be. I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway, they got it all worked out with them. But
And
leaving America is probably a lot easier than coming into America right now.
100%.
So anyway, I just think it's dumb to be up in arms about people being delayed getting to where they need to get.
Never attribute to conspiracy that which can be attributed to slow bureaucracy.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, that's my hot take.
I like it. Well, even though things were sort of up and down with the Flyers, there were some entertaining games this week.
Yeah.
The first game was on Sunday. This actually happened while we were recording our podcast last week. We didn't watch it. The Flyers played the Avs. The Abs won 2-0, so that one was not very exciting. But we didn't watch it, so it doesn't really count.
It was kind of what we expected to happen.
Urson did have a 93.8 save percentage that game, so
hey, there we go.
That's a good one.
Yeah, very good.
Tuesday, the Flyers were in Utah, and even though they didn't end up winning that one, it was a really fun game to watch.
Yes.
So the Flyers had been shut out in their 3 previous games. Nobody had scored for 3 games, and people were starting to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, oh no.
Like, oh no, they can't put the puck in the net.
That's alarming.
Yeah.
But they broke the scoring drought about 2 minutes in, and it was Rodrigo Abels with his first NHL goal at the age of 29.
Yeah.
So we talked about him a little bit last week. Brian Boucher said, "How do you like them apples?" And he's been sitting on that one for a long time, waiting to say it. He was very happy.
Nice.
That was a dad joke he's had holstered for a while.
Yeah.
Nick Delorier was back in the lineup, and he, on that goal, was screening the goalie, and then he leaped up in the air very nimbly.
Yeah.
Which is impressive for somebody of his sort of stature and pugilistic tendencies. And so the puck went right in, and then he immediately turned and scooped the puck up off the ice. It hadn't even stopped moving yet, so he could get it for Abels, which was really cute.
And let me say, it's good to have him back. I forgot what he does and who he is to a certain extent, and he does bring a different energy to the group, and he's great.
Yeah, and it's not like the Flyers don't have a fighty energy. Like, they are, they're a fisticuffy kind of team, but he brings that heavyweight energy.
And I don't know, it's a good energy at the end of the day, too, for some reason.
No, he has a sweetness to him, even with those sort of big fighty tendencies. So yeah, there was a point where Urson had frozen a puck, and it looked like Liam O'Brien, aka Spicy Tuna from Utah, was maybe going to try and get in there with a stick and poke at it.
Yep.
And Sanheim was like, "Nuh-uh," and kind of pushed him away. And then Spicy Tuna didn't like that and gave him a little shove back. And then Nick Delorier was like, "Oh, bitch, did you forget I'm back?" And got up in his face, and Spicy Tuna was like, "I did forget you're back. Never mind."
Yep. Yeah, that was funny. We saw that. We were obviously watching that live. I rewound to that to show you because I was like, look at this. Because, Sanheim's not a pushover.
Right.
But
but he's not an enforcer either.
No, he's not. But yeah, he pushed him it seemed like he was like, yeah, I can get away with this. I'll just push him and kind of rattle him a little bit. But then, Sanheim just kind of turned his head and just kind of started skating off. And out of nowhere, Delorier shows up and that guy's face just dropped.
Yeah. No, he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can't do that this time around."
Delorier's like, what was that you just did? Oh, okay.
"Oh, did you have something to say to me? Did you have something to say to my teammate? You can say it to me instead."
Exactly. God, it was funny.
It was really good.
Yeah.
And then, the next shift, with face-off happened, hockey started happening, and then Spicy Tuna and D'Lo decided they were going to have some old-fashioned fisticuffs right at center ice, and they dropped the sticks and they dropped the gloves, and you are not usually a hockey fight person. I've never seen you enjoy a hockey fight like that before.
This one was really good.
Yeah.
The lead
it was so old school.
The lead up to it was good. It was gentlemanly.
Yeah.
It was like old fashioned fisticuffs.
Yeah. No, it was there were rules of order.
Yeah. They were like, let's do this thing. We want to do this. We both like to do this. Delorier's like, I just got back out of prison. Let's go.
Or off of injured reserve. Same difference.
Yeah, same difference. Yeah. Didn't take him long to get in a fight. And it was a great fight, I thought. You
pointed out, before the fight even started, D'Lo kind of just dropped his hand real loose, and you were like, "Oh, that guy's going to get his ass kicked."
The way he fought reminded me of someone who's like a bar fighter, street fighter kind of dude. Yeah, he shook his wrists and his hand was all loose, and I was like, "Whoa!" Yeah,
you were like, that Spicy Tuna guy does not know what he's about to get into.
Yeah,
that's not going to be good for him.
Yep.
It was good. I mean, they both got plenty of blows in back and forth, but D'Lo was 100% the winner of that one.
He was, yeah.
I mean, yeah, and the refs really just let it go. They're both kind of pros. That's what they do.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe Jim saying, these are both guys who will both be looking for fights every game and can't usually find anybody to go with because of who they are and how they are.
Right.
So they're probably both really excited to see each other. Yes.
It did seem like they were happy to be. It was just great. The vibes were, I don't know. They were good.
It was good energy. Like, yeah, you could definitely tell, Spicy Tuna was using it to try to amp up the crowd.
Yep.
And yeah, it was enjoyable. It just had good energy. Like the Stars will do that sometimes where it's like a throwing of the gloves, but it feels very obligatory.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, oh, this again.
Here we go.
Yeah, this one, it just seemed like they both were really jazzed about it.
Yeah.
And like the Flyers were so into it. They cut over to them on the bench doing the stick taps, and TK had his like little feralist little raccoon face on, just enjoying it so much. I went back to show you.
Yeah.
Because he was all scrunched up and grinning and just looked like he was having the time of his life.
Yep.
So
good times.
Loved that for them. And yeah, the game was, pretty back and forth. Abels had his goal. Forster also scored one. When regulation ended, it was 2-2.
Mm-hmm.
It did go to OT. It looked like it was going to go to the shootout, and then Utah scored the game-winning goal with literally a tenth of a second left.
That's right. Got to stay till the end.
You got to stay till the end. It was a crazy one. But despite the loss, A, we got an extra point, which is always great.
Yep.
And then B, it was just fun. It was just entertaining. It was good energy.
Yeah.
I just enjoyed it.
Torts talked about that like yesterday and said, just how weird the league is. Like their best game that they've played, they lost. And then some of the games that they ended up winning this week were not the best games. And that's just how it works out sometimes.
I mean, that's really how I got you into Torts. And then sort of by extension, the Flyers, is I saw a post game with him where the Flyers had won something like, I don't know.
It was like 6-0 or something.
It was like 6-2 or something like that. And he was like, no, that was a terrible game. We were awful. We sucked so bad. Everybody was awful. This guy sucked. That guy sucked. That guy sucked.
Yep.
Just, he was so like negative about it. And I thought it was hilarious. And I showed you and you were like, I love him.
Yeah.
So that was it. You just started watching. You still didn't even start watching Flyers games right then. You just started watching Torts pre and post game.
Exactly. Yep.
So,
and I still do.
And you still do. And that's how you went down the slippery slope to become a Flyers fan.
Yeah.
So.
And he did say that that's the best he's ever seen Ersson play. And
Yes.
It was one of the best goaltending performances that he's seen in his entire career.
Which is super high praise from Torts. He does not throw praise around willy-nilly. So when he is being complimentary, you've earned it.
Yeah.
So that's really great. Thursday, the Capitals played at the Flyers at Wells Fargo Center.
Mm-hmm.
This was another one where the Flyers didn't pull out the win, but it was still extraordinarily entertaining.
Yeah.
So Michkov looked fantastic from minute one.
Oh, this is the game where Michkov, like right out of the gate, every shift was amazing.
Yes. This was their first time playing the Capitals that wasn't a preseason game this season. So everyone thinks maybe he was kind of like showing off a little for Ovechkin, maybe, his fellow countryman.
Mm-hmm.
But really from the get-go, I mean, he and I think the first maybe 3 shifts had chances every single time. Just
and
looking sharp.
Bush said the same thing. He's like, "Whoa, he came out fired up. Keep your eye on him. This is he was like, something's going to happen here."
I said it. I was like, he's getting a goal tonight. Like it's happening. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
And he did. He had a gorgeous breakaway goal near the end of the first period.
Mm-hmm.
Although, unfortunately, Ovechkin would score and tie it up by the end of the first.
Right.
Again, getting closer to that Gretzky record with every passing day.
Yeah, he's like 15 or 16 away.
Something like that. I haven't checked.
Yeah.
But so that was great. Then in the second period, the crowd was just screaming at Emile Andre, shoot the puck, shoot the puck. And for once, it worked. Emile Andre shot the puck. And then Tyson Forrester tipped it in. And it went in and it was great. It was a total success.
Yeah.
So now the crowd will be insufferable.
Yeah. You don't want
to encourage that kind of behavior.
Don't give in to them.
Don't do it. Michkov scored again. This one was a really great pass from Owls to get that one in. And then he came the closest he's ever come to making a lacrosse goal.
Yes.
And if he would have put it in, it would have been his first career hattie in the NHL.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how perfect that would have been to have his first hat trick be on a lacrosse goal, which really you pointed out like at the time of the game.
Yeah. No, it's... You could see that he was certainly, I think, aware that that would be cool.
It was so good. I mean, even like Bush, who has been like, can he knock that off? It's like, oh man, that was a close one. That really was maybe the right time to try that.
Yep.
Oh man, it was so close. So sadly, Meach was not able to pull off the hat trick, and Philly did go down 4-3, but it was just an electrifying game all told. And I feel like part of it was because in the second period, Kuzmenko and Pelletier showed up finally.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they had been, finally their paperwork had gone through where they could come into the country, but then their travel had been delayed. They had been hung up in Canada for like a day because of weather.
Yeah, they went to Toronto to make it so they could fly closer, but then there was a snowstorm or something.
Yeah, it was a disaster. Yeah. But they made it in time for the second period, so they were up in the manager suite with Danny Briere.
Yep.
And just taking it in, having a good time. So I feel like the boys were feeling a little zesty, putting on a show.
Yeah.
So it was really nice.
Yep, good game.
I enjoyed it. And we did get some interviews with Kuzmenko and Pelletier this week that were up on, what is it, the Flyers YouTube channel? Or
yeah, they post all their stuff up there.
Mm-hmm. Just based on those interviews, you texted me a link to the Kuzmenko one. It was like, I don't know, maybe 8 minutes or something. And I texted you and I was like, I'm only 49 seconds in and I would already kill for him.
He's amazing.
He's great. He's so funny. He's so charismatic.
Very funny.
He's like, I don't really understand your question, but like, I'm going to try.
Yeah. Somebody asked him post game yesterday about the chemistry he was having. He's like, what is this word chemistry?
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean? So the guy had to like restate his question. I love that he's like, I don't know what that means. You need to help me out, buddy.
And it's really funny watching the reporters struggle with it.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to like reframe it in a different way.
Nope.
You know, I interview people for my job and I will say I have alternate ways of phrasing it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, the questions I ask are very open-ended. And so sometimes I'll have little notes for clarification written down. And I'm like, maybe these Philly beat reporters need to take some tips from me.
Yep.
So especially when interviewing people where English isn't their first language, because come on.
Yeah. But yeah, he's hilarious.
He's a delight.
He's hilarious. I mean, he came in and he's like, I haven't played in like 20 days and then I'm going to get one game and then I'm going to be back on break. He's like, this is terrible.
Yeah, no, he was very he's like, what is this? What a weird situation.
No, but he still like jovial throughout that. Like,
yeah, no, very much. And yeah, they asked him why he moved his no trade clause. And I don't think he ever really truly understood the question. But
no, they didn't do a good job of rephrasing the question.
No, not at all. Yeah. But yeah, basically he was just like, I think Philly in the future has a chance to go places. Yeah. So I like it. I think he wants to be there and he's interested. So
yeah. And everyone seems to agree him being there could be a real help for Michkov.
Yes, for sure.
Especially since they've played together before. And
they have. It's
speak
true.
The same language and all that fun stuff.
Exactly. And then we had a shorter interview with Jacob Pelletier and he is just a precious little cinnamon bun.
Yeah, he seems okay.
Yeah, I already was sort of predisposed to like him because I had read that article about, him getting the trade news and he's a very emotional guy. And I just am like rooting for him now so much. I'm just like, he just seems like such a sweetheart. So Kuzmenko's paperwork did get sorted out in time for the Saturday game against the Penguins. Pelletier's did not.
Yeah.
So we still haven't seen Pelletier play yet, but we have seen Kuzmenko. So this game looked pretty messy and chaotic. And for once, it felt like it was more on the Penguins than on the Flyers. Mm-hmm. In their defense, the Penguins were missing Crosby and Malkin and Brian Rust. So 3 of their best players, which doesn't help. So they had a lot of their B team up. But really, this felt like a showcase game for Kuzmenko.
Yeah, he just showed up and was making things happen. I think I said this during the game, but watching him play, I got a good sense of what people mean by hockey IQ.
Yeah.
Because it was like overlaid on top of what I'm used to seeing. And I was like, oh, look at him thinking about things. So he's like a chess player out there with like opportunities and what's going to happen next and where to be. And yeah, I enjoyed watching him.
Yeah, the first goal of the night started with him making a play on the boards to get the puck out to TK, who got it to Scott Laughton, who scored the first goal for the Flyers. And, it was great. And then he just was in the mix for the rest of the game. You could see him all the time, like behind the net, doing stuff up against the boards. He was just involved in all the plays, just in the mix. So I was really excited watching him. Garnet Hathaway had a very silly goal when a puck kind of squirted out to the middle, and then he out-hustled 2 Penguins players to get to it and went up, and the Penguins goalie tried to come out and do a poke check, and it didn't happen. And the puck ended up just kind of bouncing into the goal. And Hathaway was just like laughing afterwards because it was such a goofy goal.
Yeah. You could see it like on his face. He was like, oh, I guess we'll count it, but like, I didn't really make that goal.
Yeah.
It was just kind of that vibe.
No, it was a little preposterous. It was like true comedy hockey. So, and then, the next goal was a TK goal that he deflected off of a Penguins player. So again, pretty comedic.
Yeah.
So the Pens did have a very weird goal where it got whistled down and they were like, no goal. And then and then the Penguins challenged, and then it was like, yes, there's a goal. And we're just very confused because you can't challenge a goal that's been whistled down. But then they're like, nah, that's not why they challenged it. It was because the goaltender interference.
Right.
It was very weird. But anyway, it didn't matter because the Flyers held on and won 3-2.
Yeah. I didn't feel bad about that one because when you looked at the overhead, I'm like, no, that's a goal. That should have been a goal.
It was
pretty clearly just...
It was just very confusing.
The guy blew it down from the other side of the net, had no sight of anything. So
yeah, it's just annoying because last year in the playoffs, or not the playoffs, last year, the last game before the playoffs, very similar thing happened where there was a puck that got blown down too early and then immediately went in the goal.
Yep.
And it was the Flyers' goal, and they didn't give it to the Flyers because the whistle had blown.
Yep.
And if they were following that same rule this time, it would have been the same. But it didn't because of other reasons and whatever. I'm just goaltender shit. It's just crazy at this point.
Well, Torts overall wasn't super happy with that game. He thought they got outplayed, kind of. He was happy with Erson. He was happy with seeing Kuzmenko.
Good.
But overall, he was just kind of like, meh. We should have won that Utah game. That's the one we should have won.
I mean, valid, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. So
it's still nice to go into the break on a win.
I think that's good for them. Yeah,
I think so too.
I'm sure it's good for anybody, but for them especially.
Absolutely. Well, shall we move on to my beloved Dallas Stars?
Let's do it.
So this one kicked off with the last Stars home game for a while. We had the Blue Jackets come visit the Stars last Sunday. And our long national nightmare finally ended and Mason Marchment came back to us.
Yes, he did.
Yes, it was a huge relief. And like the diva he is, he got the first Dallas goal, which was a very precise tip-in goal. Really nice. He was very happy.
Yep.
He looked very smiley behind his fishbowl, which he took off every chance he got. As soon as he would get to the bench, he was like, let my beautiful face breathe.
Yeah.
Which made me nervous. I'm like, no, just keep that on.
Right. That bench has been a problem for a couple guys in the last couple of weeks, getting pucks in the face. So.
It has. I'll actually be talking about that in a minute.
Okay.
So everyone's favorite cursed boy, Logan Stankoven, got a goal this game.
My goodness. When they say Stankoven, like when Josh gets all excited on the play-by-play and then I hear it Stankoven, like my shoulders like are up and then he says Stankoven and then they just go down. I'm like, nah, it's not going in.
I'm going to find whoever hexed that boy and I'm going to make them do a counter curse.
Yeah.
It's just not fair anymore. He just looks so sad.
Yeah, it does.
But yes, no, it was also the first game for Granlund and Ceci after they were traded from the Sharks. And that was an assist from Granlund. So nice. Makes it worth it for me if they can maybe do more of that.
Yeah. Do more of that thing.
And help uncurse Stankoven. Wyatt had a very sassy little power play goal off an assist from Harley. And then Dodonov had 2 goals. One of them was a little controversial because it looked like maybe it was a high stick. Going in.
Right. Yeah, they reviewed that for a while, didn't they?
Yes. Yeah. But his other one was a really sort of clean and classic wraparound goal. So regardless, he won the game either way.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you were mentioning, being on the bench does not guarantee that you are safe from anything. Blue Jackets player Kirill Marchenko was on the bench and one of the players on his team was trying to clear a puck and it went out and hit him in the face and it broke his jaw.
Yeah.
And he had to have surgery and he is now out. They haven't announced a timeline, but usually it's 6 to 8 weeks for a broken jaw.
Well, whoever made the curse on the Dallas Stars was a little sloppy because it's starting to affect other teams.
Yeah, no, it's bleeding out everywhere. And also, don't forget, that was the same game where Maverick Bourque caught a puck to the face.
Right.
Yes. So I think
it was... epidemic.
Yeah, Zach Werenski made a shot and it went off Bork's stick and trickled up and hit him in the nose, and he bled all over the ice.
Oh, God. Yeah, that was pouring on the ice.
Oh, my God. It was disgusting.
Thought he was done for.
Yeah. Apparently, they were playing it on the Jumbotron like over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
From what I hear.
We saw that one lady behind the coach reaction. Like, she was just watching it, and then she just made the most horrified face.
Yeah. No. Luckily, Victory Plus did not show it that much, but
yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, no, it was a gusher. It was bad enough that he did not play in the next game.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh fuck, not again. Like, what are we gonna do? I started calling them the Dallas Bubble Boys.
Yeah.
Because we still have mush in the bubble. Mm-hmm. Matt Dumba's been in a bubble forever.
Yep.
Duchesne's wearing like the long extended visor ever since he got like the puck by the eye.
Yeah, you can't mess up. He's not getting his face messed up over pucks.
No, he says, I am also beautiful. And we said, okay, sure. So,
he does look kind of silly out there with it, but I don't know.
He's been playing great with it.
Yeah.
So whatever works, my friend.
Yeah, no,
like,
if that doesn't bother you, I'd definitely play with that if that didn't bother me.
Yeah.
Because I don't want a puck in the face. Well, this is why I don't play hockey.
Well, yeah. Many reasons. Yeah. Also, that especially.
It's one of the main reasons.
One of the main reasons.
No, it's not.
So then the Stars set out for a road trip. And the first one was against the Ducks on Tuesday.
Yep.
This game was deadly because it didn't start until 8:30 Mountain Time, which is a late puck drop for us.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about your bedtime again because I know you're sensitive about it.
No, I watched most of the first period.
You did. It's true. Yeah. I watched the first period on the couch and I watched the rest of the game in bed.
Yep.
I was a little worried because it was a national broadcast and the commentators they had were so dull.
Oh, that's right.
They had this like quiet, like ASMR, if ASMR sucked, worse than usual kind of vibe.
They were like the white stripes on a highway on like just a long road trip where you just start to get like, it becomes hypnotic.
Yeah, no, I was like, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to do it. And it was also a low scoring game. Right. So it was just really a miracle I stayed awake. And I probably should not have bothered. We had one goal. It came in the third period. It was Blackwell. Jamie Benn had been in the box and he came out of the box on a rampage and got the puck to Blackwell, who scored.
Yep.
But that was that. The only really significant thing that happened was that Lyubushkin was on the bench and then he got up and made a beeline for the tunnel. And we have not seen him since. And he has been out day to day with a upper body injury.
Yeah.
We don't know any details. So, we're already hurting with no Miro. And Yabushkin's been so much better than anybody thought he would be and has really become pretty critical to us.
Yeah, right.
Very quickly.
Picking up the slack.
Yeah, we really need him right now with no Miro and him being out is another huge blow. And we had no Maverick that game on account of him joining the Bubble Boy squad.
Right. Yeah, I obviously didn't see most of that game, but I will say the Ducks colors got to go. Oh my God.
It's real bad.
Jeez.
And like we watch Philly all the time, so it's not like we can't handle orange.
Orange is okay, but
like I don't love it, but like
too much orange is not a good thing.
Yeah, at least the Flyers have black to break it up.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's not good. It's really not good. So Friday, the Stars played the Kings, and again, going in, we're at a disadvantage because we're down Miro. Right. We're down Lyubushkin at this point. We had to put Brendan Smith back in his assigned position of defense. That's how dire things are.
Right.
Which is not ideal because he's actually a lot better in forward than he is at defense, it turns out.
Yeah.
So we did have Maverick Bork back, which was nice. Mm-hmm. And surprisingly, he was not in a bubble. And they asked him about it and he said he had the option and he didn't because I didn't want to, which is a very French Canadian kind of thing.
That's a perfect answer for me. I'm like, yeah, all right, good.
No, it reminded me of a thing that our daughter said when she was 6. She said, I don't want to because I don't want to.
Exactly.
And which,
it's a strong argument.
It's a very strong argument. Like sometimes you just don't want to because you don't want to. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you just don't want to.
Yep.
And that's an answer enough. So yes, Maverick Bork did not want to be in a bubble. And that was fine. So, because he hasn't broken his face again yet. So good job for him. Matt Duchene opened the scoring for the Stars. He had this like ridiculous goal where he just kind of like went like back and forth and just shook off this Kings player and just kind of like went around and like turned around. I don't know, like just shook him right off. It was crazy.
Yeah.
They did a video package on Thomas Harley before the game. So, of course, he had to score a goal.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. They need. Anyway, I have thoughts on that video, but
Okay.
it was interesting to get like his perspective and kind of his background, which is, interesting, I guess. But my goodness, the voiceover and the way they've written that needs to be punched up a little bit. It was so like 30 for 30 or whatever it is, ESPN. It was like...
They're going very serious and professional with it.
Yeah.
And we want more of the TikTok video where Wyatt is undoing Maverick skates for him because he lost rock, paper, scissors. We want more of that vibe.
More of that. And Harley's fun too. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just too like sports.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I still liked it though. I enjoyed it. I did realize during that video that Thomas Harley is like the world's youngest looking old man.
Yes.
He's just very well preserved elderly man.
He's got grandpa energy.
He does, big time. And that's okay too. Mm-hmm. I have grandma energy. So
yeah.
There you go. Bork had a great goal. He cleaned up a rebound from Ben. And then Duchesne had another goal, which gave us our first lead of the game, took us to 4-3. But then the Kings tied it up again. Jake stood on his head the whole game. He was phenomenal, and he got us into OT and to the shootout. But at that point, he didn't have anything left in the tank and couldn't make any more spectacular saves. And Robo couldn't even pull out a shootout goal.
Yeah.
Which that's like the thing he can do. So
yeah. And I tell you, I think I watched that whole game. Yeah, because it was like Friday.
It was a Friday night, yeah. So
the Kings, I know like hockey psychology calls them like the silent assassins or whatever. I have no reference for anybody on that team, any of the players, how they play, what they do. They're like they're just ghosts to me. Like I know they're good, and I watch them, and I've watched a whole game with them, and I'm still like, I don't know who these guys are.
They're not actively boring like the Islanders are, but they also just like don't leave a lasting impression.
Yeah, they just fade into the background somehow.
They're ephemeral. So Saturday, the Stars played the Sharks, which they're like our sister team.
Yeah.
So I had a bad feeling going into this one, after the prior two games. I described the Stars in the Kings game as ADHD icons because we rarely, if ever, show up on time.
Yeah.
And, we really have not been showing up on time for these West Coast games.
No, yeah. Something about California is not kind to the Dallas.
Yeah. And it didn't really, look like it was going to go in a good direction either at the beginning of the Sharks game.
Nope.
Because the Sharks scored on their first shot on goal.
Yeah.
So that wasn't great.
Nope.
And then they scored again like a minute and a half later. So we weren't even 3 minutes in the game and we were already down 2-0.
Right. And this was Nottinger, right?
Yes, this was Nottinger.
This was last night. I should remember more clearly. But
it's the end of the week. It's a lot of stuff's happened. So, yeah. You also had a lot of wine last night, I think.
Not any more than usual.
So anyway, but yeah, no, it was like the entire offense woke up yesterday. Like they were not the Dallas sleepy boys. They were the Dallas wide awake boys.
Yeah.
So we had a goal from Duchesne. We had a goal from Robo. We had one from Mush where he did a reverse hit with his ass basically and knocked somebody over and then got like a real greasy goal.
That was real scrappy, yeah.
It was great. Duchesne had another one from right off the face-off. Jamie Benn dropped a puck back for Maverick Bork, who got one in, and someone at the arena said, woohoo, that got picked up on the broadcast.
Oh, really?
And that was really funny.
That was a really nice drop on Ben. Like that was like veteran hockey right there.
Yeah,
the way he handled the defender after he dropped it, the place he dropped it was great.
He went right over and tied up the defender's stick, and yeah, it was just real nice, real smooth. Ben does great when he has like a kid to work with.
Right,
like, he just is in dad mode. Wyatt had one off of a great feed from Beck. Then Thomas Harley got one. The Sharks did get another goal at that point, but that was the Stars had 7 unanswered at that point.
Yeah,
and then. So, yeah, the Sharks got one. And then Jamie Benn just scored another one on a breakaway just for good measure.
Yeah.
So I had been hoping for a Stankoven goal, but at that point, I just started feeling greedy. So
yeah, right. Like it's probably enough at this point.
Yeah. So the final score is 8-3. Out of 18 skaters, 15 of them had points for the Stars.
God, that's...
The only people who didn't have points were C.C. Smith and poor Kirsten Stankoven.
Yeah. So I don't know if I have much of a read on the new guys being like noticeable or doing things.
Cece's in a rough position right now because we all kind of knew going in that he can be an okay D-man if he's on a bottom pairing, kind of sheltered and playing not as many minutes.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Suter was his last year in Dallas.
Yep.
He was much better then. Cece, unfortunately, as a result of Miro and Lyubushkin being out, is playing top pairing D, which is not ideal. And Dumba's also getting a lot of ice time, which is also not tremendously ideal. So, yeah, I'm hoping Lyubushkin's going to be all feeling a lot better after this break.
Yeah, so they're on break now. So that's a good way to go into the break for them. Good way to go into the break for the Flyers.
Yeah, exactly. I'm always happy to go into the break on a nice win.
Yep.
Feel good. This was an extra good win. So, I do feel bad beating the Sharks by that much. Because
I was wondering if it was going to be just a 13-1 game or something. Like it was just like a practice session. It started to feel like it could go that way at one point, but I don't know. The Sharks didn't look awful.
No, they don't look terrible or anything. No. It's just they're just in a different phase right now. They're in their rebuild era, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I promised last week we're going to play a game, and we're going to do it.
All right, we're going to do it.
So we've been watching this guy, Johnny Lazarus, on YouTube, who skates a lap around the rink with various NHL players and asks them questions. It's slightly less awkward than your usual player interview because they're skating and maybe they feel a little more at ease in their natural habitat. We've mostly learned that hockey players love the movie Step Brothers.
Oh my God. All of them.
All of them.
They can't shut up about that.
No, it's there.
When did that come out? 15 years ago?
It's been a long time.
Right?
It's like a classic.
I guess.
I've actually never seen it all the way through.
I haven't either. I've only seen clips of it.
Same.
I don't celebrate all of
Will Ferrell's catalog.
Yeah. He was at the
Kings game.
Yeah.
Sure, he usually is.
Yep.
So Lazarus did do a lap with Wyatt Johnston, and he asked Joe if he had a favorite romantic comedy, and he said a lot of them.
Yep.
Which is a thing I've heard with hockey players. Hockey players are into rom-coms. So
yeah, okay.
I could see that. They're kind of light and fizzy and don't require a lot of brain power. So I could see it. If you're curious, he did ask what Joe's most recent rom-com was, and he said he watched The Longest Ride, which was more of a rom, not a com, but he thought it was great. It had Clint Eastwood's son in it. That's all I know about it.
I can't remember the last rom-com I saw.
It's probably been 20 years for me.
Like Forgetting Sarah Marshall, maybe?
Maybe something like that. It's been a hot minute.
Way back.
Yeah, it's been a while. So since it's been a while since we did a game on the podcast, and with Valentine's Day coming up, I thought it would be fun to break down some of the archetypal characters that you might find in a rom-com and figure out which hockey players might fit into each archetype.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured I'd just go through my list, and then we could talk about the players that we came up with.
Cool. Yeah, I came up with things, so that's good.
Yes. It was definitely not immediately before the podcast.
It's definitely not. It wasn't a last minute thing. I definitely
put a lot of thought into it.
Absolutely.
So much effort. I mean, I also didn't email you this list in the middle of the night last night because I procrastinated. So
it's true.
It's true.
It showed up and said, yeah, anyway.
Lots of good planning on both of our parts. Anyway. So the first one I came up with is the career-obsessed person who is wound too tight and doesn't have time for love.
Yeah.
So did you come up with anyone for that one?
I came up with somebody for all of them.
Okay, good. Awesome. Who'd you come up with for that one?
I mean, this one just seemed to point right at Connor McGriddle of the Edmontons.
Of course, yes. AKA Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
That was immediately who came into mind for me, too.
Yeah.
He's just, hockey is his one true love. He doesn't have time for romance.
Nope, he doesn't.
There'll be time for that in the future when he can no longer play hockey.
And I think he probably does do romance, but it's probably real goofy and kind of awkward.
Right, because 99% of his brain is taken up by hockey.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I feel like that one was kind of a gimme. I kind of started off with that one.
Yep.
I kind of rearranged my list a little bit, too. So
sure.
The next one I think I'll talk about is the chaotic but lovable disaster.
Okay, sure.
I went with TK for this one.
Oh, I think that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. He just, he's my favorite little chaos monster. Yeah, there's something very lovable about him, despite the fact that he does seem like maybe he would eat a burrito out of a trash can in the middle of the night.
Yeah. It's raccoon eyes.
It is. Who'd you say for that one?
Yeah, this one I struggled with. I wrote down Jamie Drysdale or Marchment.
Oh, I could see that for both of those,
Yeah.
especially Marchment, really.
Yeah.
I don't think Drysdale is very chaotic.
No.
Certainly lovable.
Yeah.
Marchment is very chaotic.
He is chaotic. I mean, he
Yeah.
only learned to control his limbs this year.
Yeah, and that's still a work in progress for realsies.
Yep.
Even Jim Nill said so. All right, moving on. I've got the one who's in love with their oblivious best friend.
Okay.
Did you have anybody for that one?
Well, yeah, I picked 3 people.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
Well, it was Delandria, Will Smith, and Celebrini based on that picture you sent me.
Yes. Yeah. There is a gif of them walking into a game together.
Yeah. And I don't know who's in love with who and who's oblivious, but I mean, I could have just gone with Will Smith and Celebrini probably. But
I mean, there are those vibes for sure.
Yeah. But I feel like throw Delandria in there and it's just a love triangle of confusion.
You know, you and I have a similar thought process with Delandria, but mine comes in a little bit later.
Okay.
So I'll get to that one. For this one, I chose Thomas Harley because I feel like he's really stepped up to co-parent the baby stars with Wyatt. And Wyatt's just real focused on being a good dad to all the babies. And he just thinks Thomas Harley's being like real nice. He doesn't realize Thomas Harley like wants to marry him and be the stepdad.
Oh, okay.
So that's the vibes I'm getting from them.
Gotcha.
So probably because Thomas Harley has real old man energy.
Yes, he does. He's got a pocket full of Werther's originals.
Yeah, he's like, oh, this nice old man keeps giving butterscotches to my children. He keeps giving them nickels to go to the arcade.
They're like, I don't even know where he gets these.
He gives us $2 bills. He wears
dollars.
Yeah. Oh my God. All right. Who is the grand romantic gesture guy? The guy who just does an over-the-top romantic gesture.
So this one, I don't know. I went with Sagan. He just seems like the type that would try something like that.
Ooh, I could definitely see that. Although I feel like he would do that, but like for himself.
Yeah.
Like he'd order the whole flower store, but like for himself. Like he'd be like, you know what?
Yeah.
I look really pretty tonight.
He'd be like, somebody sent me these. I don't know who it was. People.
Yes. 100%. And that's why he married his stalker.
Yes.
So he just likes to be loved, and that's okay. I went with Matthew Kachuk for this one. I had originally picked him for a chaotic but lovable disaster, but I don't know. He feels like a real grand gesture guy to me. He's so over the top.
I think that could work.
And especially, you know, with him, he knows everybody's name in Florida, you know, like the janitorial staff,
right.
the people who, like, he knows everybody and their life story, and he pays attention to the details. So, yeah, I feel like he'd pay attention to, you know, the thing that you secretly wanted and never had. And he'd show up with like the pony and the hot air balloon or whatever it was that you needed to feel special.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah, I could
like
see
it.
that.
Yeah, he's definitely got the acting chops of like a Hallmark movie person. So
I could totally see him doing that someday. The next one I feel like is maybe going to be the trickiest one for you. I don't know.
Right.
The alternate love interest who's perfect on paper, but really just there to be a plot point.
Sure. What did you get?
So I don't know if you really know this one. It's Matt Barzal.
Know the name.
Yeah. So
possibly know what team he plays for.
He's on the Islanders.
I knew it was a New York team. I was going to say the Rangers.
So he's good looking, but in that very sort of like symmetrical face, kind of blandsome, like blandly handsome kind of way.
Yep.
He's very talented. And then since he's on the Islanders, I never remember he exists unless I'm looking directly at him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just kind of, you know, think like the sort of James Marsden from the Notebook character. You won't know that except for...
Yeah, we saw some interviews with him this week.
Yes. But
Still don't know who he is, but sure.
Right. No, seems fine. Nothing wrong with him. Great guy. Looks good. Can do stuff. But I just... You know, just not as spectacular as Matthew Kachuk with his hot air balloon pony. Mm-hmm. Who did you come up with?
So yeah, the grade on paper, I went with Makar.
Oh, I could see that.
Like if you just wrote down everything about him and left out like the bland boringness, and you're like, he scores, he does this, he's fairly good looking, I think, probably like this and that. On paper, I think he's probably great, but yeah. I think he would just kind of...
But then you go on a date with him and he spends 3 hours talking about lawn care.
He does.
And you just can't get over that one.
No, you can't.
And you're just like, he's so nice, though. Like, there's nothing wrong with him. He's not a bad guy or an asshole, but like, he's just really way too into his lawn.
Yeah, exactly. He's got no bad boy energy.
No, not a drop.
Nope.
Not a morsel.
Nope.
Not a tidbit. So, yeah. The next one I've got is the smarmy ex who makes the current love interest look even better in comparison.
Mm-hmm.
I went with Brad Marchand for that one.
Oh, I think that's a good one. Yeah.
That was just what popped into my head.
Yeah.
He's got real smarmy ex energy.
For sure. I chose Duchesne. I didn't really know if I was choosing properly there.
I could see that too, though, actually. Because, yeah, Brad Marchand's almost like so over the top. You'd almost be like, oh, that's like too much of a cartoon villain. Like, why would they have even dated that person in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Duchesne, you could actually be like, oh, well, he seemed pretty normal until all the youth pastor energy came out. And then
Exactly.
and then it got a little intense.
Till you wanted us to sing Kumbaya or something.
Yeah. And then I was just like, oh, boy.
Yeah.
So,
or maybe like you're at on a date with him and like he gets up and does like open mic with the band or something.
oh, my God. That's exactly what it is.
And you're like, oh, God, please don't. Oh, no, he's going to sing. Oh, no.
Oh, no, he sings you a song that he wrote about you.
Oh, God, he's looking at you.
He thinks he's grand romantic gesture guy, but he's smarmy ex.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's upsetting.
He's singing a song at a person, which is just so god awful awkward.
Yeah, he's doing the public proposal to try to pressure you into marrying him because he thinks you'll be too polite to say no in public.
Oh, my God.
Oh, boy. The next one is the sidekick / best friend who has their own B-plot romance going on.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the one where I came up with Ty Delandria.
Oh, okay.
But I said Ty Delandria, but his romance involves him always third-wheeling another couple until he realizes they've been trying to date him the whole time. Because, as we know, Ty Delandria loves hanging out with couples.
Professional third wheel.
Professional third wheel.
Yep.
Ty Delandria.
Yep.
Last year walking into, the Stars event with Tyler Sagan and his wife, living with Jake and his wife.
Yep.
Although they thought of him more as an adopted son than a third wheel.
He's like a relationship color commentator or something.
Yeah, no, going on like couples trips with the Dallas Stars during the off times and then going off and hanging out with the Wags while the boys play golf.
Yep.
Even though he plays golf too.
Right.
Yeah, no, I love Ty Delandria. He has very, very fun sidekick best friend energy for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I can totally see it's like you just think he's off, the whole movie. He's just like third wheeling it with this other couple. And then he shows up and he's like, oh my God, guess what? It turns out I've been dating these guys the whole time. and it's Smith and Celebrini at this point, I guess. So
yeah.
There you have it.
Yeah, and for mine, I picked Dreisaitl.
I could see that for sure.
Best friend, got his own plot going on, has his own spinoff in the works probably, but maybe not. I don't know. He might just be second fiddle.
See, I kind of thought of him as the one who's secretly in love with their oblivious best friend. But then I came up with our final category, which is the grumpy one who is secretly a sweetheart. Oh. And that's obviously Leon Draisaitl.
Oh, yeah, that's a good fit for him.
That's where I slotted him in.
Nice.
He is very grumpy, but then you see him sometimes in interviews being very sweet and cute. So,
yeah.
He definitely plays into that grumpy exterior and he knows how he's perceived. So
yeah, I
think it's pretty cute. And did you come up with somebody for grumpy?
Yeah, I just picked Torts.
Oh my God. Okay, that's great. Yeah, he is a grumpy one, but then you get a dog on the scene and he is secretly a sweetheart.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Hockey Boys as rom-com characters. I actually kind of enjoyed that one.
I think this could be a Hallmark movie and they could probably act in it and star in it and be fine.
I'm now like kind of wanting to go back and get some rom-coms and cast them with hockey players now.
Yeah.
And see. I think it could be really entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, that's the end of regulation for this week's episode of Ice is Slippery. You can find us on Tumblr, Instagram, and TikTok at Ice is Slippery Pod, where I occasionally post content whenever I happen to get around to it. You can also find us on Blue Sky at iceisslipperypod.bsky.social, because Twitter is 3 dumpster fires in a trench coat. If, like Fred, you avoid social media, you can also email us at iceisslipperypod@gmail.com, where we would love to hear your spicy takes or get suggestions for future games. Until next week, stay out of the penalty box.